So today I'm going to give a run through on down versus synthetic. It's a classic debate. I'm going to talk about which is better, which is worse. Is there a better or is there a worse? And really, which is the winner, and we'll see what comes out. There's a huge amount of confusion. I'm going to try and clear it up a little bit. So the argument around down versus synthetic more comes down to getting the right jacket to do the job that you need it to do, rather than whether it's full of down or full of synthetic. A little sample of some synthetic fill. Synthetic has come a long way in the last few years and continues to develop to the point where it's getting really close to down. And in some cases, and some uses, it is actually superior. One of the things is it's relatively durable. It doesn't move around, particularly when the sheets are stitched in properly. It also has an added benefit of remaining warm when wet. When we talk about down, one of the really confusing parts about down is fill power. Fill power in simple terms is how much volume that 1 ounce of down takes up. So in our diagram here, we've got both of these weigh exactly the same, yet 550 takes up X amount and 900 takes up a correspondingly larger amount. Very simply, higher fill power, more volume. Easy as that. So after you understand what the fill power is, most people will go, well, if it's 1,000, it's got to be warmer. Oh, that's not always right. So what we typically see from brands and jacket manufacturers is that 1,000 fill power enables them to use less, right? And it means that you could have a jacket that's actually got far less fill and still give you the same warmth. Or typically what we're seeing in the really lightweight space is we're seeing jackets that are built with really high fill powers that aren't as warm as a beefy 650 fill. So to truly understand how warm a jacket is, particularly once we start talking about down, you have to know 2 values. You have to know what the fill power is and how much down there actually is in it. Pros and cons of both synthetic and down. Down is typically, and we're going to talk in broad terms, lighter than the equivalent synthetic. Like I said, some of these synthetics are getting really good, but the warmth to weight ratio of down currently is still amazing. So particularly once you get into those high fill powers, synthetic's not quite there, but we're going to talk broadly speaking for what's available in the market. Down lighter, synthetic slightly heavier. Now, down doesn't like getting wet. Now we do have products like Nikwax, so you can have hydrophobic down, which means it's a little bit more water repellent. Gradually over time that will still end up wetting out, and if you're in a really wet, cold environment, then you're possibly still better off steering away from down because you just don't have that redundancy. That said, typically synthetic, well, you can put this stuff through a washing machine, pull it out and still be warm when it's wet. So if you're in wet, cold environments and you want to be warm no matter what, if you're fly fishing on a cold river, then having a synthetic jacket that means that if something happens, you fall over and you end up in the drink, you're going to stay warm for the rest of the day even though you're wet. So it gives you that little bit of redundancy. Whereas a down jacket, depending on the brand, may not give you that redundancy as far as being wet when warm. I'm going to quickly show you what happens when down gets wet. We get a little sample of down here. You can see what's happening to it. So it's getting wet, it's clumping, and all that lovely loft that we've got over here has just gone into one wet, clumpy mess. So hopefully you can see that just there pretty well. What was in my hand here before, which is trapping air, it's doing that job, is now just a wet duck, really, I suppose. It's probably the best way to describe it. That's no longer doing its job. It's not going to keep you warm. That's just it. If we were to try and dunk our synthetic sample here without getting too much of the down, you can see what's still happening. I can squeeze the water out of it. It's still, like, it's wet. It's holding a bit of water, but it's still got some sort of loft there. That's the advantage that synthetic has over down. So I need to talk about briefly what is an active layer and what is a static layer. So a static layer, and what I mean by that, is a layer that you put on that's going to trap heat and keep you warm while you're static. An active layer is something that you're going to put on that wants to keep you warm while you're moving. So you're still generating a lot more heat, and an active layer needs to be able to deal with that heat. So it needs to be able to pump it out in some way. So it either needs to wick it through, it needs to be able to breathe, needs to be able to get rid of that heat. Now typically an active layer will not be as warm as a static layer, especially for the same weight, just by the nature of the way the material works. But that said, nowadays the active layers are getting really good. So you can start to use an active layer as a static layer, particularly if you're going to put a shell over the top and stop that air from getting out. Within down versus synthetic debate, we will see down, or I will always classify a down layer as a static layer. Down does not really breathe, and the way the materials are typically engineered means that you don't want those down fibers coming out. So typically we will only see down used in a static sense, and we will see synthetic used in an active sense. So within that, there's a lot more to go through, so I'll keep going through some jackets. We talk a lot about layering systems. So today, right now, I've got a merino wool base layer and a lightweight fleece on. This is my sort of active layer. So if I'm working, it's cold, I'm able to manage the moisture and manage the sweat. What do we do when we stop? Well, when we stop, we need to put on a warmer layer. So with that, that could be down or synthetic. So we'll talk about down first. So I've got here really nice lightweight down jacket. The nice thing about this one, I'll throw it on, instant warmth. Now, down is really lightweight and lots of warmth for weight ratio, and synthetics are only just starting to be able to replicate that down value of loft to the same degree. This thin down jacket is a really good piece to be able to put on under a shell layer. Now you're going to be nice and warm, but if you're really active, you're going to start building up and sweating in this, because the downside of down is it doesn't like to breathe. Typically down jackets are designed for static warmth. So this one here, it's great, nice to put on around camp. It's not as warm as a big, thick down jacket. I'll get to that one in a minute. So if you're really cold and you're really static, you just got to go for something bulky. So lightweight down, nice as part of a layering system, but if you're active and moving, it's not great. What do you do if you want more warmth, but you're moving? So you've got to start going to synthetics. The downside is I have two synthetic jackets just here. So this is the Nano Puff and this is the Zen Air. The importance and the reason I've got both of them just here is the Nano Puff is not an active synthetic, it's a static synthetic. So it's basically doing or replicating the same thing as that lightweight down jacket that I just had there. It's really good static warmth, but if you're moving in it and you're generating heat, it has no way of moving that heat through. It's where we get to active synthetics. So a lot of the brands have got them now, and over the last few years there's been a lot of development in this lightweight active layer. So this is a layer that I could even ditch the fleece on that I've got on and replace it by this active mid layer. The synthetic, it breathes pretty well. You're still going to get warm. It's great for cold weather, and it's going to be able to breathe. So it is allowing vapor, moisture, hot air to travel out through your system. It's really good in probably the case that we've got just now, where the wind's just started to pick up. I can feel a real cold chill now, but if I'm still doing things, I'm still snowshoeing, or I'm still skiing, this is going to allow heat to transfer out without being the same as putting on a shell or putting on a thick down jacket. Finally, it's worth talking about that thick down jacket. Now, you're talking about a down jacket, could be 600-700 grams, lots of fill power. It's important to remember that once you get to a warm down jacket, the actual construction of the jacket changes as well. So if you're building something for warmth, you're building it like a sleeping bag. So what you would have noticed with this, or what you can't quite see on camera, but the other down jacket that I've got there is a stitch through construction. So you get cold spots where those stitching linings are. This down jacket that I've got here is like your big base camp jacket. And it's actually constructed the same way as a sleeping bag. So it's got a box wall construction. It's got a big baffle down the middle to protect the zip as well. So once you put this on, it's like putting a sleeping bag on. Synthetic just doesn't quite cut it in this level of warmth just yet, but it's not far. It's getting really close. Down's great in that it lofts, but in a wet, cold environment, down gets wet, loses all its loft, and then you've got no warmth. So that's where synthetic completely trumps it. I've got a couple of layers on here, so I'm now actually too warm, but it's worth noting that typically your big down jacket is sized appropriately to go over a couple of other layers. So this jacket I've got on here is still a small, and it'll quite happily go over those layers. So you don't have to go, oh, I need to size up, I'm buying a warm jacket, you know, I'm a small, I need to go to a medium. Just buy the size that you'd normally buy, and you'll find that there'll be enough space, which is better. That's the problem. So I suppose they've both got advantages and disadvantages. Synthetic's starting to get really close. The confusing part about the whole thing is that it really depends on what the jacket's designed to do and what you're doing with the jacket. You know, you're not going to put this on and this particular jacket and really hike around. You're going to build up a sweat, you're going to get wet, you're going to get down wet. Same thing is you're not going to use it in the rain. But if it's dry and cold, really cold, this is perfect. If you're more active, you need to go for an active layer, in which case you're going to look at something like synthetic. So in conclusion, there isn't a right answer. There isn't a down's better than synthetic. It's about picking the right jacket for the right situation.
Got to start to put some of those jackets on now, Chris.
So if you try and put all your jackets on, chances are they won't fit. I've gone up 3 sizes.